Before we start, you're 6 hours ahead, so you don't know this yet. But I talked to mom and dad yesterday, who I didn't think that they listened to our podcast, but they on their drive home listened, and they were deeply disturbed, and they asked never to talk about them again on the podcast. I asked for them not to listen anymore. So if they are listening, I want to apologize for hurting your feelings. They had a lots of layers of critique. One of them was that we hurt their feelings, and that's on us. We fucked up, and I'm really sorry for that. They also had they didn't. It was all tied together. They weren't really parsing it out, but I was. They think our podcast is really bad. They they think that they they don't understand podcasting. I told them I would try to explain it at a later date. Like what they're like, why do you think anyone would want to listen to that? But all I want to say is that our parents, I think it's fine for us to make caricatures of our.
Wait, can we actually wrestle with their points for a second?
Well,
like, why would anyone want to listen to this?
Well, that
in your opinion.
So, I think that confessional podcasting, like confessional vulnerable podcasting, is compelling radio for people to listen to. I think that we used to be, and we will again this episode be a sports podcast, and I think that there's people might want to be interested in staying up with Boston sports, and also like I think that there's something about us as leftists who are also sports fans and trying to reconcile those two things that are actually kind of irreconcilable. That is makes for good, compelling radio. And a lot of sports commentary doesn't have any of that tension. They just uncritically love sports, and you tend to be misogynistic, racist, capitalistic, and unquestioning any of those biases, whereas we are trying really active to question those whatever biases we have and to bring alternative perspectives to sports fandom. And ultimately it's a losing battle that we're fighting, but I think that again makes for compelling radio. It
Yeah,
is.
I mean, the only thing I would add to that, brother, is that like it seems to me, right, that part of the reason why you don't get any like leftist sports takes is because most of the sports takes you get, like, there's like an established market for them.
Right.
And there is absolutely no market for the nonsense that you and me are spewing on a.
But I mean, what our vision for doing this in the first place was in part because we were searching for something like that. And
that's true.
And so we felt like there was a need for that for people like us, assuming that we're not the only ones. So, but I think we did get a little carried away last episode by never talking about sports even once. And I think that if I don't know what to say about it, felt so surreal because again, there were so many different layers of that they're being disturbed, mom and dad, and one of them, and I didn't even remember what the podcast. I mean, it had been 2 weeks, so I
was it when you said that you want to spray dad with a?
No, it was when you said, "Are you lumping?" It sounds like you're lumping me and dad together, and I said, "Yeah, you two are more similar than you both would care to admit. You're both incapable of seeing your own." Like whatever, I don't want to rehash it, but we had no business bringing that into it. But what felt bizarre was that that this is an age-old thing for famous comics and writers, and people like where their family kind of suffers sometimes because of their public persona. But we have, the two of us and 150 people listening to this podcast.
And yet our parents still suffer.
Yeah, and I was just like, oh, this is stupid. I'm so sorry. And and also maybe mom's right, or maybe I'm wrong, or else it's probably the other way. She was just like, now that that's out there, you can never take it back. That will be on the internet forever. And also like one of the things that she's always concerned about, for good reasons. I Googled you yesterday just because I was curious about this. And so, like, I understand her point, but sort of, but it's a little bit. She was like, what if you guys are trying to, like, you're at a job interview and they read that, they listen to that. I'm like, Mom, there's no one's gonna sift through like 36 hours of content to, like, it's just whatever. We're not ashamed of who we are. I think we're playing exaggerated versions of ourselves.
I'm ashamed of who you make me out to be on this
It's-
podcast on a daily basis. It's humiliating.
Yes.
You humiliate me every episode.
Right, and you are a product of my own mind. I've made you. This podcast version of you is my own perverse creation, but it's how you come across to me, and I think everyone else too. So that's just something for you to think about. I also want to shift gears and let everyone know that we have we haven't discussed this or how to deal with it, and my first reaction was to ignore it, but then I feel fine about it. There is a podcast.
Oh, are you talking about our troll?
Yeah, there's a Twitter troll that
I think I know who it is.
do you I mean,
Have you thought about who it could be?
I was positive it was you.
Wait, just tell everybody what's been happening.
So
I guess.
someone
I don't wanna
created
get,
a Twitter account that's called Phone Wallet Keys Stop Podcasting, and they
Please.
they have, and they really they listen very carefully because they'll tweet.
Yeah, they live tweet our episodes.
Yeah, they'll tweet just things like minute 24, and they'll quote like the picture of their Twitter picture profile. I've never seen this picture. It's so fucking funny. This is how I realized it wasn't you, because at first it was an anonymous picture, and then they finally found a picture that's their homepage, and it's a picture of you with your arm around a cop, and you're both smiling. Is that Billy
What
Donovan?
happened was, no, what that picture is from. I went to a baseball game when I was. Remember when I was like really into the idea of sewing other words around the B in the Red Sox?
Yeah, you
hat?
had a boycott Israel hat. You had a using the B from Boston. What else did you have?
Absalom was like a literary one.
You're such a
But
nerd.
the one that is in this picture is it's funny. A funny story. We went to a baseball game, and we were like talking our way into the game late because the game had already started, and we had like bought really cheap tickets from these guys, and a cop sort of took notice, and then he read my hat. And then he'd said Hezbollah on it with the Red Sox B in the front.
Oh my God.
And this cop had literally just come from like an anti-terrorism training. And he's like, I need to document this because I just was trained about it. He's like, this is like, I was just on an anti-defamation league panel about this is very concerning. And then I was like, it's not concerning. Calm down. I'm Jewish, blah, blah, blah. And he agreed that after he photographed my hat to pose for a picture for me. And I think the person who took the photo, the person who was at the Red Sox game, is the troll. But until we suss this out further, I would like to not name them.
Oh, I love that. So anyway,
But also, everyone who's listening to this podcast, do not follow this person. We do not encourage trolling us. We do not encourage listening very closely to this podcast and then tweeting this stuff that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's who the fuck are you? Why would you do that?
This does not. I'll just like spare you the work. This does not hold up to scrutiny.
Yeah,
what we're doing right now.
We know that what we're doing is dumb and doesn't make any goddamn sense.
And mom and dad, like,
so
this is bad. This is a bad podcast. You don't need to tell us.
You're right about that, mom and dad. That like, who would want to listen to this? Nobody.
And sorry.
And you're right, anonymous troll.
All right.
Like,
that being said,
we're
let's
charlatans.
get it going.
Cross me up. Don't snap. Don't breathe. Just leave me of this skin. And baby begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Phone Wallet Keys, David Ortiz. We have a lot to talk about.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Car Talk. I got Sam Geller on the line. Let's hear about your new car.
It's stalling a lot. It's stalled out 4 times. It's an automatic transmission. It's stalled out 4 times in the last 36 hours. I bought a car, ladies and gentlemen, and
the car. Wait, are you kidding me?
no. What? that I bought the car.
It's stalling out?
Not like while I'm driving, but while I'm parking or just attempting to leave, it stalls out. But I'm not that concerned about that. I got a mechanic that I like, this old Japanese guy named Nori, and the check engine light came on the day after I bought the car, and so I drove around for a little bit. I took it to Nori, and Nori was like, listen, it could just be that the emission sensor needs to be replaced, or maybe a mouse has been chewing the wires. I don't know. But he fixed it up for me, and then he said, drive it 60 or 80 miles, and we'll see how it goes. And so I did that, and then check engine light has not come back on. So the stalling is kind of an issue. And also when I pull the wheel all the way, one way or the other, it makes a horrific screeching sound. The passenger front window can't be rolled back up on the passenger side. The on the back right door, the kind of handle sticks, and so then it doesn't shut properly. So you have to roll down the window and close it from the outside. Other than that, the car is beautiful. It's in great shape. Everyone loves it.
Wait, I don't understand. Did you not turn the car in your numerous test drives of it?
No, I definitely did, and there was none of these problems. Well, some of these problems, but the check engine.
Like you knew
what? I knew about the door and the window.
You knew, and the wheels or no? Like I've had all these problems with various vehicles I've owned, Sam, and they're all like $800 to fix.
No, that can't be right.
I mean, do you like having a car?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, yeah, it's great.
Have you got any New York City parking
None,
tickets
not
yet?
a single one. And I haven't
Good for
even
you.
filled up the gas yet because I also have been lending the car out to anyone who asks. And they've been filling.
Who has borrowed it so far?
Jonas took it upstate. Emily Schechtman took it to New Jersey. Sarah Rabin took it to her studio. I think that's it.
Wow, that's really nice of you.
Well, I've been living off of borrowed cars for up until this moment, so I've got a lot of stuff to pay back. And I also just think it takes a village.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot to talk about. I want to talk about, number one, the Patriots are still undefeated, I think, and we haven't really given them their due this year, so we're going to talk about the Patriots. We also have to, the NBA season has started, so that is about to start.
Yeah, by the time that people hear this, I think the Celtics will have played their first game.
Which is great. So we're going to really get into the Celtics. And also, we should start here with basketball. And then we should briefly, at the end, we'll talk about how the Yankees lost and how we made that happen. You're welcome. So let's start with basketball. Before we get into the Celtics season, I want to really kind of get into the who's who and the narratives thus far. I want to give you the chance, Max, to apologize and walk back from the rants that you were making in the last episode about China and Hong Kong and how it relates to the NBA. Do you want to take this opportunity to apologize?
What did I say last episode?
Well, a lot of people have commented on the rant that you went on, not just close family members that won't be named, but also.
Are you just talking about your former stupid college roommate who likes to travel around the world and talk basketball with Tibetan monks? Because he's a fucking idiot, and so are you. I'm sorry that these protests in Hong Kong are perfectly aligning with U.S. imperialism, but don't run that shit by me. Focus on Haiti and Chile. I don't give a shit about these non-fatal protests in Hong Kong. You know how many people died in Chile yesterday? You know how many privately owned utility companies had their headquarters burnt to the ground? That's a fucking protest.
Well, it's not that. I mean, you're not against the protests in Hong Kong. I can't believe I have to say that, but obviously you're not against the protests in Hong Kong. You're not against demonizing China because that aligns too closely with U.S. imperial interests. But
are you so happy that you and Ted Cruz are on the same side of this issue?
What?
Because Ted Cruz, since our last episode, showed up in China and talked about how great the Hong Kong protests were. So, I mean, if you need to sound exactly like Ted Cruz, be my guest. I haven't heard Ted Cruz say shit about Haiti, and I haven't heard him say shit about Chile. And it's right-wing billionaire president who's backed by the U.S. So I think we should prioritize better and not talk about this nonsense. But if you want to, I'm happy to.
Well, I guess I'm interested in it from the sports lens. You've made your critique clear, and thank God for everyone's sake that you're doing so in a tone and a volume that is a little bit more palatable than the last episode. At the very least,
I want to tell everyone that I've had 100-degree fever for the last 3 days and traveled 1,000,000 miles. So the reason why I'm so subdued right now is not because I've calmed down or because I'm less offended by my brother's political ignorance. It's just because I don't have the physical energy to get pissed off.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to, at this point, make a promise to you, to the best of my ability, and with your help, we can ensure that this will happen. We will be inducing fevers in my brother for all future episodes. For your sake.
Just keep me. You sound like a fucking one of these psychotic Dutch or German grandpas who keep their whole family locked away in a basement. I'm starving and I need medicine, and I'm gonna wander half dead into a tavern and be like, "There's 6 more of us, and I haven't seen the sunshine in 3 days."
What? What on earth are you talking about? In any event, I'm interested in that.
Don't you know how there's always these stories, and it's always a Dutch or German man, and it turns out that they've been keeping a family underground in a weird sex cult or end of the world cult for the last 40 years. This happens every 5 weeks if you read the news.
What the fuck are you talking about? Why are you talking about that? What does your fever have to do with that? Unless you're having hallucinations right now.
Your threat to keep me sick and thirsty.
Oh, I mean,
feels like a Dutch grandpa.
If that's what the Dutch grandpa
with his family locked in his basement.
Dutch grandpa is dealing with you as his family member, as I am, then I think we can all maybe start to reassess our biases against such Dutch grandpa behavior. And I think maybe he's just trying to save the world from the wrath of the likes of you. In which case, it's complicated. I'm not going to say I support something like that, but I would just say there's layers to this also. Max,
I want this whole part deleted.
I'll listen back and see how problematic it really is. Max, I'm interested in this NBA situation from a labor standpoint.
Okay.
The NBA employees, well, also
the workers.
The workers. Is Daryl Morey's a worker, right? Sort of a GM.
Yeah, he's management, but I would say he's management.
The workers did something that jeopardized the profit of the owners in a major way. And
which we discussed last episode.
And how the owners are dealing with that has been really interesting since then. So one update is that the most popular and influential worker, LeBron James, came out very strongly against Daryl Morey's criticism of China. Thoughts? Is LeBron James shilling for the owners, shilling for the company?
Would you mind pulling up his quote and reading it for us?
Yeah. I think LeBron James also he wants to own a team one day, right? He's talked about that openly.
He wants to be a billionaire, yeah.
Okay. LeBron's comments went something along the lines of, I just think that when you're misinformed or you're not educated about something, and I'm just talking about the tweet itself, you never know the ramifications that can happen. We all see what that did, not only for our league, but for all of us in America, for people in China as well. And then
I don't think that's a very good look for LeBron James, do you?
And then later he tweeted, let me clear up this confusion. I do not believe there was any consideration for the consequences and ramifications of the tweet. I'm not discussing the substance. Others can talk about that. No, I think it's completely transparent. And LeBron James, when he has been an outspoken critic of Donald Trump, a little bit, he called him a
Right, when he called him a
he called him a
bum.
bum, and
Yeah, I remember that.
and I think he did some advocacy for Black Lives Matter, if I recall.
Following the Trayvon Martin shooting, he wore a hoodie
Is that true?
in Miami.
That
Yeah,
was pre Black Lives Matter, but I think he also did he wore a Black Lives Matter shirt later. But yeah, so
after right when he's back in Cleveland and that little kid got
Tamir
shot.
Rice, right?
Yeah.
So this seems like a departure from that. Although, unless you think that what LeBron is really getting at here is that we need to not align ourselves with Ted Cruz and U.S. imperialism and instead shift our thoughts to Chile and Maduro in defense and to defend Maduro. Do you think that's what LeBron was getting at?
No.
Me neither.
I think LeBron is interested in making money, but I also think it's like it lays bare the sort of the contrast, right, between when the way people have responded to the way the right especially has responded to the NBA lays bare the sort of contradictions, right? Like everyone was racistly saying "shut up and dribble" to players who are criticizing the president, the Warriors most recently. I remember when they refused to go.
Yeah, this is a good point.
And I think it's sort of like not surprising at all to hear them being like, you have to say something now when like you have to like stop dribbling and start talking. When again, U.S. empire interests align with like an anti-black sentiment.
Right.
I think that people are sort of like Fox News and the president's tweets directed at Popovich and Steve Kerr seems to make clear that people expect sports figures to shill for U.S. empire.
I think that's right. And I think that's really interesting. This is an ongoing story that is going to be potentially the defining story of the NBA season. And so I think we're going to...
Which is wild because the season hasn't even started. And I mean, like, China is digging in, right? And saying, like, we're not going to broadcast any of your games. And, like, again, we talked about this last episode, but that's an enormous fucking market.
Yeah.
And...
No, I mean, more people watch the NBA in China than they do in the United States.
Yeah. I mean, there you have it, right?
It's crazy.
But, like, on the other hand, I don't think it's not like China is just going to start airing instead the Chinese NBA, right?
Right.
So I think there's like going to be a major market hole that they need to fill. And I think this is, again, not for Americans to start like telling China how to run things. I think Chinese people will tell China how to run things.
I mean,
or I hope.
To the extent that the Chinese government has is a government that's responsive to their people, or that the people have even avenues to express that. I really don't know.
So what do you imagine is about to happen? That like they're just like going to announce that the NBA is verboten and like don't even worry about it anymore. It's not happening. They could just say that the season was canceled, and because they control the internet, no one in China would find out. Because that sounds insane. That's not true.
No, of course not. But they could say we're not going to broadcast any of the games on the state-owned television cable networks, and then
No, not just state-owned. They blocked all NBA games. You can't.
That's what I mean. Yeah. So like they could just make it almost impossible to watch the games. And then I don't know how the
Well,
people would
again, I think
respond.
that becomes that's not our job. That sounds like a domestic Chinese option, and I don't think Ted Cruz should be opining.
Agreed. All right, let's talk about the Celtics season.
Well, we have a lot has happened since last year.
Yes.
Do you want to apologize to everyone for how wrong you were about Kyrie Irving?
Yes. I was extremely wrong about Kyrie Irving. And
Begin with a. I'm not getting.
I'm really sorry. Because
There we go.
if you were following,
What do you feel worse about?
I feel like the whole team was constructed around Kyrie Irving, and to such negative consequences that the ramifications are only now just becoming clear to me. So I think signing Gordon Hayward made sense if we were gonna have a core with Kyrie Irving, and it doesn't really make
Al Horford.
with Al Horford as well. So I think, and now we're just left with, of those three, we're only left with Gordon Hayward, who makes the least amount of sense because he plays the same position as Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, or at least Jason Tatum. Like it kind of. So I just think, and he is the max, he's the other max contract on our team. So it's just that our team, it doesn't even really make sense still in the after. Even though
Last year,
here's what I
2
wanna
years
say.
ago, everybody, 2 years ago, we had this amazing thing happening, right? We had the best point guard in the league, a basketball genius, who we were all super excited about.
So
because
fun to watch play
he-
basketball.
He was so fun to watch, and he was a Standing Rock Sioux Tribes member, and we were like, we should just like get all the way behind this guy. And then we also got Gordon Hayward, our coach's favorite player when he was a college coach. And the two of them together, they almost beat Duke in the NCAA final, and it would have been the greatest upset in the history of the Final Four if Butler had beaten Duke in that game. Instead, they lost by 1. But so Gordon Hayward and Brad Stevens back together. Brad Stevens, this genius coach everyone loved. And you bring in Kyrie Irving, you have Al Horford and all these young players plus draft picks. It's like, man, the Celtics are going to be great. And on the first play of the season,
There was
Gordon Hayward,
a freak injury. Gordon Hayward broke his leg.
horrifying.
And so we lost that whole season, basically. I mean, actually, we still went to Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals when we had already lost Kyrie, too. And then we had kind of understood that with Al Horford and our young core, we were actually a really, like a team that was...
Exciting team.
Exciting team. Like, Jason Tatum, as a rookie, dunked on LeBron, hit a step-back 3 in Game 7. And then, so there was a lot of excitement about last season because we're getting Kyrie and Hayward back, in addition to all these young players.
And Kyrie is saying beautiful things like how much he loves Boston.
Yeah, he wants to stay here.
And how he can't wait to re-sign long term.
Okay, so what I want to say is this. And last season was a complete disaster. Kyrie
Irving was had bad body language all year long. He took 40 shots, said, I'll shoot more even though I'm really cold. He phoned it in the playoffs. He cost us the Boston Slam.
Yes. And we've replaced him with Kemba Walker, who is, like, by all accounts, 95% as good.
At least 90. Yeah, he's great. He's a great player. I love Kemba Walker. And he's a New England kid. He won the NCAA championship for Connecticut. People like him.
Yeah. And so in that sense, the only real difference from this team is that we lost Al Horford from last year, and who I love, but Al Horford's 33 and has a lot of minutes on him, and it shouldn't be that big of a deal but somehow we're gone.
We
from,
lost him to our arch rival.
Yeah.
He went from being on the Celtics to being on the Sixers, and then he said the reason he left was because Kyrie Irving was such an asshole, and I was afraid he was going to re-sign with the Celtics. So not only does Kyrie Irving fuck us over and start and sign with the fucking Brooklyn Nets, and instead of bringing his friend Kevin Durant to the Celtics, they both skip out and go to Brooklyn. I hate losing to New York. You know how much I hate it. I fucking hate losing to New York. And we lose our best point guard to New York. And not only that, that defection costs us our center, our best center, who you need a big man in this league.
Yeah, and that's the one thing.
And he said, I'm not coming back because Kyrie Irving was such an asshole. I was afraid to re-sign with the Celtics. And so Kyrie Irving being an asshole cost us two of our best players, Kyrie and Al Horford. And now no one thinks the Celtics are going to be good, Sam. Even though we have Kemba Walker, even though we have Jason Tatum,
Well, I got news for you,
even though
Max.
we have Jaylen Brown.
I got news for you. The Celtics are going to be really good. You hear to hear.
I think you might be right. But even if they're not, I'm going to spend my whole season. This whole season will be a success for me if Kyrie Irving is a failure.
Listen,
Fuck that guy. And I think this gets to like one of the best parts about sports is hate watching.
explain. What do you mean?
I mean, like, there are any given year, right? There are only 10 out of 30 teams in whatever league you're talking about that have like a legitimate shot at winning the title. Would you agree with that?
I mean, I don't know that there are 10 NFL teams that have a legitimate shot at the Super Bowl, but there are probably only 5 or 6.
Yeah.
But in the NBA this year, there's definitely going to be at least 10 teams that could win the championship.
Right. And in the Major League Baseball, there's maybe only 6 teams that were a legitimate shot.
Yes. In any event, 5 to 10 teams.
But there's 30 teams in 30 cities,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And for if your team sucks and there's no chance of you winning, like what makes a sports season compelling, right? I mean, you could just love the game and love watching it, and you could love watching your team improve and get better and better. I think it must have been really fun for the Kansas City Royal fans to like wait as their team slowly got good and finally compete for a championship. That might have been fun.
Yes.
But for me, if I were a Royals fan and my team never ever won, I would just spend all my time hating on St. Louis. Being from Kansas City, I would assume you hate the other side of Missouri. I don't know. I have never spoken to someone from Missouri, and I don't plan on it. But I would assume that there would be some sort of geographic rivalry, and I would sustain myself through my hatred of the other. I can't wait to talk to you about baseball because I got really into this last baseball series just like this. But I think it does the body good. Hate does. And I can't wait to crack my knuckles this basketball season and hate Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, kind of.
Because I'm afraid that without a center, the Celtics aren't going to be as good as, say, Philadelphia, who are playing in our first game of the season, because they have Joel Embiid and Al Horford. They have 2 really good big men, and we have 0.
Yes.
So I think they're going to be better than us.
Yes. Philly is better
but that's
than us.
okay. Yeah. I don't want them to win the championship.
Philly?
I don't want Philly to win, and I don't want LA to win.
So are you going to be rooting for Milwaukee all season with Giannis?
I mean, I would be so happy. Milwaukee? I mean, Milwaukee's have they won since Oscar Robinson? No, they're not a threat to us.
Yeah, no.
The Lakers have mad championships. If they start, if Anthony Davis and LeBron James, who hates
What if the Clippers win?
freedom, yeah, that's fine. That would piss off the Lakers a lot, and it would mean
Yeah, I
Right.
think this is
Like,
right.
this
So there's
is-
certain you can kind of like chart this out, but and see like which are the stories that you'd feel positive and good about, which are the stories that will express your shadow self, which needs an outlet, and
what's a shadow self?
that's like kind of your like negative, destructive urges, your Thanatos, your death drive, your just like the all. I think it's just the yang to the yin of your like positive self, your light self. You need outlets in this world for your negativity, and sports often provides an appealing one for hate watching.
Both positivity and negativity.
Yeah.
Like, I watched that guy run the marathon in under 2 hours. Did you see this?
I mean, what do you mean you watched it? You watched that dude run the marathon? No, you didn't. You saw.
No, but like when I was on the internet when he was finishing up his unbelievable pace, and I cut live to
Oh,
it
really?
because there was like a Twitter live video, and it was like amazing. It made me feel so positive that a human being could do that, like run 4 minute miles or 4.5 minute miles 26 times in a row. That's so fucking crazy.
Yeah,
That's so insane.
that really is.
And I felt really, really positive. And I guess that's the only example of that I can give you, because usually I watch sports and think about how great it is that my enemies are losing,
Yeah.
not that my friends are winning
So-
or fellow man.
There's also like, I think one reason to watch the Celtics team is that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are poised to make leaps to becoming like perennial all-stars. That could happen, and that's really exciting. Marcus Smart is always so fun and inspiring to watch, the way he plays the game.
Marcus Smart, the best Bostonian maybe we've ever had. I love him so much. Sam.
I really love him so much.
I also think he's going to be playing. He's like everybody. He's like 6'3", which is like maybe an inch taller than me. But he's also going to be guarding 7-foot players this year.
He might be our center, because we don't like. He's the of our five.
He's the strongest player we have.
And of our 5 best players, the tallest one is probably like 6'8". How tall is Jason Tatum? Yeah, 6'8". And so, and other teams have 7-foot players. So it'll be up to Marcus Smart to guard Joel Embiid.
But Marcus Smart is stronger than Joel Embiid, even though Joel Embiid has a whole foot on him and 100 pounds. Marcus Smart is stronger than Samson.
He just wants it more too. Like Marcus Smart wants it more than anyone on the court, and that's what makes him so fun to watch. Is what he's willing to do to get it. So like
I would do anything for him.
I think we have some really exciting rookies this year. We have Carson Edwards, who hit 8 3-pointers.
The 3-point shooter?
In the third quarter alone of the final preseason game. This guy is an incredible shooter, and he's going to be electric off the bench with some really. I think our bench is going to be so good. I think Carson Edwards coming off he's undersized, and so people are worried about his defense, but he's just going to come in and just hit threes and be like, we didn't have an electric guy off the bench for the last 2-3 years. Like it's been a long time since the Celtics had a player who could come in from in our second unit and catch fire. And if we're down, like I feel like in the last season or two, if we're down 8 points, if our starters are down 8 points and then we have to go to the bench, it's just like we have no chance to make that deficit up. And so it only grow. But now we have this guy who can light up, and it'll be so fun to watch him. And I think Grant Williams, the other rookie that we have that is going to get a lot of playing time, is also, he's kind of Marcus Smart-esque. He's undersized, but he's extremely strong, and he knows how to play the game really well, and it'll be really fun to watch him. I think Robert Williams, who is our rookie last year, is gonna make a leap this year, and he could become the starting center before the season's over. The team is going to be really fun to watch, and where I think our floor is the 3rd best team in the East. And I also weirdly kind of think that that's our ceiling. Like, I just think we're locked into the 3rd best team in the East. But here's what I'll say about Philadelphia. We have no one on our roster that can guard Joel Embiid. They have no one on their roster that can guard Kemba Walker. They don't have a guy that can shut down a small, shifty point guard who can catch fire.
Right, they got rid of Jimmy Butler, isn't that right?
Yeah.
He's on the Heat now.
Yeah, Kemba Walker, we've seen him catch fire. He's liable to drop 35, 40 points in a game.
I saw him score 70 points against the Celtics once. 70.
Right.
It's like one of the greatest games of all time.
So I think in that sense, I'm not sure that we can hang with Philly, who's going to be the best team in the East, in a 7-game series. But I know that we can steal a couple games here and there from them. And we have a huge problem about not having someone who can shut down their best player in Joel Embiid. They have that equal problem with us on the other side, like in the guard position. And all it will take for us to become championship, there's like 2 things that could happen that would actually make the Celtics championship contenders. One is a trade. Like if we could somehow trade, I don't know, Gordon Hayward, the Memphis pick, Grant Williams, maybe another like Romeo Langford, another 1st-round pick for a Karl Anthony Towns, where
then we would win the
we would
championship. Yes,
So
I agree.
So if we make some big trade for a center, I mean, people are.
But I don't think Minnesota would do that. Unless they were just like, we hate the Lakers so much because they up and left us that we are going to trade our best player to Boston, the Lakers' main rival, to thwart them. That, like,
Yeah, but also
you know,
they've been a
if
dysfunctional team for years now, and although they signed
right, but if Minnesota's big Thanatos energy comes through and they traded us their best player for pennies on the dollar, yeah, we could win the
yeah,
championship.
and so there's also probably lesser trades that will bring in lesser centers, but that are still like what we need is because there's a lot of talk about Sabonis from Indiana being on the trade block, and he's a center and he's a really like talented offensive player with a high upside. People are talking about a Jaylen Brown trade. I hate that idea. I love Jaylen Brown. I want to keep him. I want to re-sign him. It doesn't seem like that's going to happen. However, I think Jaylen Brown's really good. I think he actually might make a jump this year. I think Tatum will be an all-star this year. Brown will be knocking on the door, though. But so we need a defensive center. We need a big, bruising defensive center who can maybe hit some outside shots to open up the court. Because our offense is going to come from Kemba Walker and Jason Tatum and Gordon Hayward. And so we don't even need like a creative offensive centerpiece. Anyway, we don't even need a center who will be an offensive weapon necessarily.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about our lack of offensive production. I'm worried about our defense and lack of bigs.
Yes, me too. But I will say this.
But I think our perimeter defense is going to be the best in the league.
Yes, I think our perimeter defense is going to be incredible. And I think so besides the trade route, this roster as it's presently constructed, maybe if we pick a guy up off of waivers toward the end of the season, we could get some defensive help, another big body. But here's my path for the Celtics actually leaping up from just being the third best team in the East to being a legitimate championship contender. Ready?
Let's hear it.
Number 1, Kemba Walker is a top 7 player in the NBA. Okay. Which usually you're going to need someone who's a top 5 to compete for a championship, unless you have a
really good
one top 10 player,
cast.
And then Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both make the leap that they are poised to make. And so and Gordon Hayward returns completely to his pre-injury. It's been 2 years now since his injury. So this is about
right.
The
then
time.
we would have 4 All-Stars.
Then we would have 4 All-Stars, which I think makes
plus Marcus Smart.
Plus Marcus Smart makes us, and you have exactly. You need one guy who's got the intangibles, who wants it more than everyone else, who's going to dive on the court. It's going to be in the right place at the right time at the pivotal moment to make a insane play that will shift the game, and that's Marcus Smart. So you have the X Factor Marcus Smart, you have a top 10 guy in Kemba Walker, then you have 3 other All-Stars who are interchangeable, who are shutdown defenders and can hit 3-pointers and can drive on guys, get to the line. And then you have Carson Edwards lighting it up from the in the second unit, coming off the bench and hitting threes. You have that's a championship contender team. Like no one is going to be able to shut down.
I
all
think
those
no
weapons.
one. I think we're going to be good in the play. I think we're going to be way better than last year because last year no one wanted to play with Kyrie Irving, who again is a mellifluent. No, again, last year nobody wanted to play with Kyrie Irving, Sam, and this year everyone wants to play together.
Yeah, they seem to love each
our
other.
Our 4 best players besides Gordon Hayward played together on Team USA this year.
Yeah,
they're friends and they're getting good. They've gotten a lot of practice in with each other already.
So
it's exciting.
It's really exciting. I can't fucking wait for it to start. I love basketball, and let's cap it there for now. And let's quickly talk about let's just check in with the Patriots. I don't know how much time we need to spend on them. Let's not talk about this particular game, but in general, the Patriots season, we have one of the best defenses of all time. Probably the best defense the Patriots have ever had, or
I've ever
at
seen.
Least,
the best defense I've ever seen.
Right
Sam.
up there with the Super Bowl, like the first generation Super Bowl defenses that we had, which
were called the Homeland Defenses because it was right after 9/11 and no one knew that the Patriot Act was going to ruin the world. So we would gleefully call the Patriots defense the Homeland Defense.
That's horrific.
It was so embarrassing.
So but we still need a lot. There's still we're trade away from our offense really gelling and clicking, or else we need to re-sign Antonio Brown. And if that does happen, we'll dedicate an entire episode to the saga. It's so outrageous. It probably won't happen, but we are looking on the trade market for another wide receiver because we're in desperate need. But I do think that our offensive Isaiah Wynn is going to come back soon. Keneal Harry's.
I hope he's good.
I hope
Our offensive line frightens me.
Yeah, me too.
Sam.
It really does.
We haven't had a very good rushing attack. Our offenses look kind of bad. I mean, our offense always never looks great in the beginning of the season, so I'm not worried. I think everyone else in football sucks.
Yeah, that's right. There is no juggernaut.
Every other team sucks.
That's right.
In the AFC. Maybe the Saints are. I think we're on a collision course with the Saints for the Super Bowl.
The 49ers still haven't lost.
That's true.
The Ravens look
but
really
we can't
good.
play. Are you worried about them?
I mean, I think I'm worried about. We always do a pretty good job shutting down like mobile phenom quarterbacks. Like I'm more worried to go up against like an Aaron Rodgers or a Drew Brees, like someone or Patrick Mahomes, frankly, who can do everything. Than I am Lamar Jackson, the quarterback of the.
Because his arm doesn't really scare me, but he makes a lot of good plays. He's a good player. But no, I mean, I think we can. I'm glad the Patriots haven't lost yet. It makes me feel like a better person than people from New York.
Oh, whose teams are a complete fucking wreck.
Which is awesome.
Which is good. We love that.
Speaking of which,
yes,
let's talk about the fucking destruction of the Yankees.
So tell me, what was that viewing experience like for you? You were all in on the Astros. Were you really following it closely?
Well, I mean, I think it's worth mentioning that, like a small, actual extent and a metaphorical, enormous extent. We were both vaguely traumatized by the Yankees' success and our collective failure as a city growing up, right?
Absolutely.
Like I would shout at Yankee fans the way I would shout at Zionists now growing up.
Yeah, it was like, I remember one time our dad's friend Dipper came to visit and you ripped his Yankee hat. He was from New York. Dipper's like an amazing person. You took his hat off his head.
Wonderful man.
Threw it on the ground in the dirt.
And jumped up and down on it.
It drove us to do
like a cartoonish anger.
Yeah. We were traumatized.
So cut to me waking up in South Africa at 4:00 in the morning to watch the Yankees get eliminated and cackling like a crazy person because I was so happy.
Yeah, I think so. You said cackling like a crazy person, which is a simile, but I think it should be more like cackling, comma, like as a crazy person. Yeah, right.
Yeah. I'm not gonna. I don't want to. I think I appreciate your point. I'm not gonna delve too deeply into it because I think if I do, I'll find a couple of grammatical hairs to split with what you just said and how it doesn't make any sense. So I'll just move on. But last year when the Red Sox were in the ALCS, if you're a fan of the podcast, you remember how scared we were of the Astros and their Jewish third baseman, Bregman.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I just
yeah.
I hadn't, been following the Astros this year because the Red Sox were so bad.
Same.
But it did, watching this series against the Yankees immediately reminded me of all the fear I felt going up against their lineup last year. But this time it was fine because I didn't fear them. I was rooting for them to hurt my enemy.
It did feel good
and
to root
hurt
for the
them.
Astros,
They did.
Yeah.
It felt. I mean, I'm not going to root for them now that they've beaten the Yankees. I would rather see the Astros lose.
No, I'm going. Yeah, I'm all in on the Nationals, mostly just for Joe Cirincione.
Yeah, I love Joe Cirincione, and Alana, our cousin, is about to marry a big
Oh
Nationals
yeah,
fan, so
true.
that
Yeah,
would be nice
Zach.
for
Shout out
Zach.
to Zach.
Um,
But yes, the
but
Astros
yeah,
played their
like
role perfectly, and I will love them forever for what they did this season.
And this is now makes a full 10 years, the only decade in the last century in which the Yankees have failed to qualify for the World Series,
That's
which means
incredible.
it might be the best decade ever. Who knows?
Yeah, this is the best decade.
I think we should maybe zoom way out and look at all of like the US imperialist massacres that have taken place over the last century, and this might be the no. Yeah, no, I mean, like, last decade was really bad because of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. The decade before that, all the way back to fucking like the Spanish-American War, the Yankees were winning championships.
Yeah.
No new wars, no new World Series. It's pretty good.
That's pretty good. The
Yankee go home.
The Yankees only make the World Series when the U.S. is engaged in some like horrific imperialistic war.
Regime change, yeah. I think that's why I'm going. Like, I have the like when I was in Paris this past summer, Sam. One of the craziest things was just like the fucking unbelievable number of Yankee hats, which again, as a Bostonian, makes me very angry to this day. Not as much as seeing like an IDF shirt, but I do think that they are like sartorially similar. Anyway, I was thinking about making all these signs in French about making up this lie that says that the Yankee symbol on their hat represents is like a fascist pro-US imperialist symbol, and instructing Parisians to stop wearing political symbols that they don't understand. And I think it would be really a really funny public art project, right? To like make up a lie about how the Yankees hat represents pro-Trump US foreign policy.
Yeah.
And then spread it around Paris and see if it works.
Yeah.
Just like be a disruptive agent of chaos against the Yankees. But then I was actually, this is true. I was actually looking up the origins of the Yankee hat and where it comes from. And it actually comes from, it was modeled after a medal that the NYPD gives to its best officers. So it actually is a fascist symbol. Isn't that incredible?
That's fucking amazing.
And they lost. They're fucking losers. They're fascist losers. Just like the Nazi who got punched on Inauguration Day and Ben Shapiro. Nazi losers.
Wow.
Pretty good podcast, I think. This is going great.
So let's just wrap this up. I want to just do one quick shout out to the Portland Timbers. That's a soccer team in Portland whose symbol is the opposite of the New York Yankees symbol. It's an anti-fascist symbol that the Portland community of this around this soccer team adopted as the official logo of the team, which was really funny and cool. And then when the MLS instituted a new rule that was gonna prohibit the display of political symbols in MLS games, they actually outlawed the team, the fans of this team from flying and it's like
anti-fascist symbol,
3 arrows pointing down to the left, and
which I think. Wait, can I just break this down real quick? Like, that symbol was the for the Iron Front, which was an anti-Nazi German worker party that like tried to resist the Third Reich and was banned in 1933.
Yeah.
And so for the first 33 minutes of this game, and after they were banned from flying their flag, they stayed silent for 33
So
straight
fucking
minutes
cool.
in a soccer game.
And not just
which
them.
is like.
also what was cool
No, they
is
got
were
they
playing
got in
Seattle.
touch with their counterparts.
And,
Yeah, they
and
got
talk
in touch
about
with their
regional
biggest
rivals.
rival.
Like, right, exactly. This was a joint effort by 2 rival fan bases to protest.
Which we could never expect the New York Yankee fans to do.
They would never
which
go
is,
along with
I
it.
think
If
worth
it-
pointing out.
right, if-
yeah, because they love
They're
the
fascist.
cops.
They love their fascist sports symbol, the intersecting of the NY. So, but what So the Portland and Seattle fan base got together and they organized a protest of staying completely silent for the first 33 minutes of this soccer game, in addition to tons of other protests. Really powerful move, and it just says so much about sports and community and politics and how all those things really like interplay with each other. And they
Also, just like as an organizer, it's such an incredible feat
it really is
of organizing.
It really
to
is. They
organize a
deserve such
whole
huge
stadium
shout-out
to
for
be
that.
quiet for 33 minutes. It's amazing.
It's amazing. And the MLS backed off. They lifted the ban of this team's symbol, which is the anti-fascist symbol. It's now.
Sam, can I ask you a question? When you were a student, a college student in Portland, was it as much of a battleground between the far right? I mean, did you get a sense of that element?
I mean,
the far right element, the fascist element?
no, there was absolutely a sense of a urban-rural divide within Oregon, and Portland being an enclave of like leftist radical activity, but being surrounded by a rural conservative right wing, like KKK friendly countryside. And Portland,
Yeah, I mean, like
had.
I remember when you went there, you told me that like Oregon has the largest concentration of Nazi memorabilia, but it's on the other side of Oregon,
Right, Eastern Oregon. And I think Portland itself has its own very extremely racially checkered racial past that I think
didn't they checkered racial past? They're like
present,
openly
yeah.
constitutionally racist.
Yes,
they
yes.
banned black people from living in their fucking state.
Yes, and also to this day, like there is
Racially checkered past. You sound like you're on the fucking MSNBC. What the fuck? Just call it what the fuck it is.
Oregon has a racist history and is still grappling with its racist present. And Portland also, like, even though it's a liberal enclave, like has a ton of segregation and is basically like lacks all diversity. That being said, I think there is a part of the Portland population that is attempting to reckon with that, and then there is tension between the rural urban divide. There's nothing like the kind of Proud Boys Antifa clashes that we've seen in the last 3 or 4 years. But I don't really think that
when
I was there
like
10
that
years
shit
ago.
happens.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I think the whole country has just changed so dramatically in the last 4 or 5 years that.
Right. We have failed to, like, 10 years ago, Nazis wouldn't show their fucking face on the street. But we as a country have failed, and now they feel brave again. And we need to do something about that.
Stay tuned next week to find out what you can do. Let's wrap this up now.
Oh, wait, one last thing about positivity instead of, and no Thanatos or whatever. Can you tell me
Eros.
about the, I don't think it's Eros. I think it's agape that I wanted to talk about. Like devoted love.
Okay.
Tell me about what you did on this weekend, Sam.
Oh, I went to the Bernie Sanders rally. Not march. I went to the Bernie Sanders rally along with 25,000 other people, and we saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez endorse him, and it was phenomenal. It was right outside of the Queensbridge projects, and so picture Bernie just going like, right across the river where the Wall Street has the millionaires and billionaires crashing the economy, while here Nas is on the corner selling dimes of Buddha and
Wait, really?
Mobb Deep shook ones.
Yeah, that's what I want to imagine. Hold on, I'm still imagining it.
No, but he did like point at the Queensbridge project
And say the QB don't stand for no quarterback.
No, he just said like this is he said this whole thing is a disaster, it's like economy and.
So give me a kiss, baby, I'm an anarchist.
It was a great rally. Bernie's back. Max, I'm gonna have to go.
All right, Sam, I love you.
I'm gonna have to call this. I love you so much. Everybody, thanks for listening.